Last night was the first preseason game of the summer. We saw some guys shine. Kimani Vidal, 9 rushes, 37 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not too bad for a guy who, if Najee Harris can't stay healthy or just flops in general, Vidal might be the number two behind Omarion Hampton, the rookie. Not bad situation for Vidal, former sixth rounder. Then you had the rookie, sixth round rookie, Condre Lambert Smith, got a touchdown, 43 yards, make an impression. Trey Lance, we can't forget about Trey Lance, looked terrific by and large, or good enough, but certainly, impressive given the fact that no one really gives him much of a chance to start an NFL game this season. And then on the other side of the ball, some guys look terrible. Kyle Allen throwing 2 picks, 91 yards on 14 throws. Not much to say about the Bears. Craig Reynolds, was most of the offense. And I think Craig Reynolds, we kind of know who he is at this stage of his career. He's 29 years old, and he can come in and be a spot starter if called upon. But in general, that's not going to happen in that offense, barring something unforeseen. So we look at a game like this and we say, all right, so what? And what I'm wondering is what Vidal's ADP is going to do. If he's the big winner of last night, and I'd like us to, I'm going to do this. You don't have to do it. You take a vacation. Just leave it to me. But I will track this and I'll report back if I remember that going into last night's game, excuse me, Vidal was the 130th ranked running back according to ADP and 536 overall. Completely undraftable. Like there's no way to spin 536. He's just ahead of Jake Fromm, who is I don't even know if he's been in the NFL the last 2 years. I can't remember, but Fromm is at 537. So that's what people think of Vidal. I think he'll probably pop to 450. I think he might move up about 85 spots. I think a running back ranking, he'll probably move to about 115. That's my prediction. So let's wait a week and see what happens. And then let's look at right now, historically, what this means. What does the preseason tell us about what's going to happen during the season? Well, last year, we look at just the first round of preseason games, that opening week, all the teams playing, the number one fantasy scorer was Giants running back Eric Gray, followed by Bears wideout Colin Johnson, followed by Vikings wideout Christian Jackson, then Brett Rippon, Bears backup quarterback Jermaine Burton, Bengals wide receiver who didn't break through, but he might this year, Ian Wheeler, Bears running back. You see where I'm going with it. This is these were the best of the best, and they didn't show much during the season, except you could argue that Burton is legit. It's just crowded receiving core, and he was not able to push through in his rookie year. The year before that, Emmanuel Wilson was the number one fantasy scorer in the opening week of preseason games. We know Wilson pretty well now, especially deep leaguers, but he's the number three running back in Green Bay. Number two, if Marshawn Lloyd can't stay healthy. Wilson had a few decent streamable games last year. So he was the number one overall scorer. Who was next? Elijah Dotson for the Chargers. A.T. Parrott for the Saints. Nathan Rourke for the Jaguars. Big prize if you know what position Nathan Rourke plays. Some of you will know. It's quarterback, but that's the point. These are the guys who were the top scorers. They all scored 18 plus in that opening week. We know Wilson's name. The others didn't make any noise. And humor me here. We'll go back one more season, 2022 opening weekend. Top scorers: Lance McCutcheon, Bryce Perkins, Jerome Ford, who obviously made a lot of noise for all the right reasons, really stepped up as a rookie. This was someone who, um, uh, you know, he's legit. There's no other way to say it. But then Raheem Blackshear, Sam Howell, Michael Bandy, Kendrick Pryor, Tom Kennedy, Little Jordan Humphrey, Jonathan Ward, Desmond Ritter. You get the idea. It's a it's a crapshoot, but it's worse than a crapshoot. The odds of an amazing score, at least based on recent history, an amazing score in the opening week of preseason games, actually making noise in fantasy during the season is slim to none. That of all those names I mentioned, the only one who was uh, eminently draftable was Jerome Ford. That he had a unique situation where he could step in and make an impact and had double digits, I think 6, 7 games that year. You know, he was legit. So what does this mean for Vidal? Like, what does this mean for anyone else who, including the Chargers rookie Lambert Smith? Uh, do we just ignore what they did? And the argument, I think fairly, is yeah, we do kind of ignore what they did. That this game doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. What they do in the next game, when presumably we'll see starters out there, uh, will matter a lot more. How do they fare against perhaps tougher defenses? How do they fare running alongside starters, other legit starters, if they play alongside them, or even coming in after them and playing against the backup defense, the second stringers. If they show well even there, that could mean something, especially if they're running behind a second string offensive line or they're getting passes thrown by the backup quarterback. So I think week 2 will tell us more than week 1. But at the same time, I think the market is going to react, and that creates this interesting issue for managers that if Vidal moves up at the expense of, let's say, Najee Harris, uh, maybe that's legitimate. Or if we believe that that his eye injury, that, it's not a big deal and that he'll recover, a drop in Harris's value would be very beneficial at this stage because you could get him on the cheap and hope that the Najee Harris of like 100 touches, 150 touches could show up behind the what I believe to be the far better rookie Hampton. Um, this is what we need to think about, in my opinion, when we look at these opening games, is not so much what do these players do, but how does what these players do impact their market value? And then how do we capitalize on the shift in that value? This is where the discipline of knowing what we think about players before they play these games is critically important. If we don't know what we think, then what they do in these games influences our thinking. And that gets dangerous because if we were influenced by, in 2022, Lance McCutcheon and Bryce Perkins, not that Perkins would have started, but if we were influenced by McCutcheon or Raheem Blackshear or Michael Bandy or Kendrick Pryor or anybody else, that could have really messed us up in terms of the draft. If, especially deep leaguers or dynasty, you're taking guys that probably are not going to make noise for years, if at all. So the key is go into the preseason games knowing what you think about these guys and then watch for changes in ADP based on how these players perform. And hopefully you will find that someone who will probably not make noise during the regular season has a huge performance at the expense of a guy that you're targeting, and the guy you're targeting drops 5, 6, 7 spots. Boom. You can now get him around later and get a lot more value for it. I'm BJ Rudell, Fantasy Football for Winners. Follow me on the Facebook blog. Email me anytime at fantasyfootballforwinners@gmail.com, and we'll see you tomorrow.